Hello, my name is Joshua Haney and I'm a saxophonist and educator. Today I'm coming at you with a video from New England Music Camp to talk to you about two new mouthpieces from Backun, the TM1 and TM2. These new mouthpieces are very exciting because they are created in collaboration with saxophonist and soloist Timothy McAllister, who teaches at the University of Michigan. Before we get started, I want to extend my sincere thanks to Meridian Winds in Okemo, Michigan, for granting me these two review copies of the TM1 and the TM2. Without them, this review would not have been possible, and I highly recommend everyone check out their store, either in person or online, for all of your saxophone, woodwind, or just general musician needs. Let's dive right in. The TM1 and the TM2 are brand new mouthpieces that just came out last month. They are a joint collaboration with Tim McAllister, the artistic soloist, Richard Hawkins, the mouthpiece technical craftsman, and Morrie Backun and the Backun Musical Company, who are responsible for manufacturing the mouthpiece. Backun is a well-regarded make, especially for clarinetists who are very familiar with their clarinets, barrels, and mouthpieces for that instrument as well. These mouthpieces have a few features courtesy of Backun that make them unique in terms of manufacturing. First, they are CNC machined, not molded or faced by hand, to allow for greater consistency from mouthpiece to mouthpiece. Also, they feature a unique chamber design that is mostly round but with some tall oval characteristics as well as some unique profiling on the inside of the throat and the chamber. Finally, Backun promise excellent playability with either natural or synthetic reed options. They even give a number of useful suggestions on the website. The Tim McAllister mouthpieces come in two facing options for players to choose from. The first, the TM1, has a tip opening of 1.44 millimeters and really competes with mouthpieces like the Vandoren AL3, or is really meant for players that are looking for something that's easier to play or works with harder reeds. The TM2 is at 1.53 millimeters, which compares really closely to the Selmer S90 190, which is 1.55 millimeters, and is good for players that prefer a medium tip opening with a medium reed, or are just looking for a bit more tip opening in general. However, the manufacturer's description of the TM1 really emphasizes articulation and cleanliness of tone, while the TM2 description really emphasizes projection and flexibility. The mouthpieces themselves are shipped in these interesting tube cases. I think they're really neat, and the only thing I don't like about these cases is that they're not really environmentally friendly, given that they're not exactly biodegradable. However, it's really easy to get the mouthpiece out. You just unscrew. You can see that they're actually have these little ridges and spiraling. The mouthpiece comes in this microcloth bag, which is something that Selmer does, and I think it's really handy to be able to store the mouthpiece in a safe way. Overall, this is a really polished retail offering, and these mouthpieces look really promising. So let's just dive in and play. For those of you who have been here a while, this won't be new information, but just to remind the audience, I'm testing these mouthpieces on a Selmer Series 3 Alto Saxophone, which I find to be a pretty neutral horn and really gets out of the way. The ligature is an Ishimori gold-plated ligature, which holds on the reed really securely. For this particular comparison, I'm using a Vandoren V12 3, which I found to be the reed that worked the best on all three mouthpieces. Let's dive in. Well, those were two very interesting mouthpieces, so let's break it down. First, I was really impressed with the TM1 and TM2's response and articulation. Just like the product description says, both respond effortlessly, blow really easily, and articulate really clearly, especially in the lower register. Response is effortless, regardless if you're in the lowest register of the saxophone or if you're going into the altissimo. Both mouthpieces offer quite a lot of projection and perhaps a touch less resistance than what I'm used to on my Selmer S90 190. The TM1 in particular was extremely easy to play, and I personally found it a bit too closed, a bit too free-blowing for my taste. I'm a player that prefers to use 3 or medium strength reeds on Ligures. I play 3.25. I like this because of the way that the reed responds and the way it articulates, so I'd prefer not to have to use a harder reed, which the TM1 seems to prefer. The TM2 worked better, however, with my preferred strength of reed, so this mouthpiece is my preferred out of the two. The impression I get is that the TM1 is a bit more suited to beginners or advanced high school students that are just looking for their first upgrade mouthpiece. This would be an interesting alternative to something like the Vandoren AL3 or the Selmer S80 Star. Conversely, the TL2 is a bit more geared towards someone who has an established embouchure and airstream and knows how to put a good volume of air through the horn, and therefore can handle the bit of extra resistance that this mouthpiece provides. Both the TM1 and the TM2 play with a bit more brilliance and center than my Selmer S90. This was kind of different to what I expected given Timothy McAllister's sound concept. However, I'm always ready to be surprised. Regarding reed friendliness, I found that both the TM1 and the TM2 were both very accepting of all cane reeds, in particular Vandoren reeds, which I think worked pretty well. However, regarding synthetic reed compatibility, I really didn't have much good luck with my Ligature Signature 3.25s. These play just fine on my Selmer S90 190. However, on both the TM1 and the TM2, the Ligures produced a really undesirable buzzing kind of sound. It wasn't characteristic of the saxophone tone that I try to strive for, nor do I think it was necessarily intended for these mouthpieces. So if you're a heavy synthetic reed user, you might want to look another direction. If you use cane reeds, however, these mouthpieces are a great option for anyone who's looking for something a little bit different from the typical Vandoren or Selmer offerings. These mouthpieces are priced at $225 a piece, which is a bit more than one usually sees for something like a Selmer or Vandoren mouthpiece, however less than the Claude DeLong mouthpiece and a number of other custom boutique jazz mouthpieces. I had mentioned earlier that I think the TM1 is really an ideal kind of mouthpiece for first-time upgraders. It plays really easily. However, in terms of its price, it unfortunately puts it out of the hands of a lot of families that are looking to upgrade for the first time. For a more advanced student looking at the TM2, while $225 is a bit more than one would typically expect for a classical mouthpiece, it's not completely outside the realm of possibility, around $50 or so more expensive than the typical Selmer. Overall, the mouthpieces offer good value, particularly the TM2 for the kind of player who would buy it. The TM1's a bit more of a mystery to me though. Perhaps more importantly than the mouthpieces themselves is the fact that classical saxophonists are getting increased cachet and means to be able to have these custom type mouthpieces be offered in the marketplace. This doesn't happen very often, and that's why it's such a big deal when players like Claude DeLong or Larry Teal or Timothy McAllister got their own mouthpieces out in the market. Regardless of if you personally like the TM1 or the TM2, be glad that they exist, because when we have more options like this, the consumer ultimately gets more choice and the products ultimately get better. So that was my review of the TM1 and TM2 mouthpieces. They really are quite interesting, and I didn't even mention the design of them is really quite refreshingly simple. It reminds me a little bit of the Selmer SD20 mouthpieces that came out in the early aughts. However, this is a bit cleaner looking. I think we'll get more mouthpieces with this clean sort of aesthetic. Finally, thanks again to Meridian Winds for making this review possible. I really appreciate you sending the review copies, and please check out their website. They sell wonderful stuff and can help you out with any saxophone or music purchase that you could possibly think of. This has been Joshua Haney, and I'll see you in the next one.